Hi there, and welcome to Left Hook. I'm Scott. I'm here with my leftist friend Jenna. How you doing, Jenna?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Scott?
Doing good, doing good. So we've
Good.
got a few things to go over this week. We are going to be talking about another round of nationwide, really in this case worldwide protests. This is the third large-scale protest we have had recently, and this was great. So I'm really proud of the people locally who showed up, and I'll talk a little bit about the national side of that too. We're going to start off watching some interviews. We're going to start off with Trump saying that he's just not sure if he needs to follow the Constitution. He just really doesn't know. Um, and also taking credit for the great parts of the economy, and then trying to blame the bad parts of the economy on somebody else. So we'll talk a little bit
Yeah.
also about how the effects of Trump's economy are going to start being felt really soon. There's an interview with an expert who kind of breaks down a little bit about what his tariffs are going to do and gives us a little bit of a timeline as to when they're going to hit. So we'll jump right in here. Round one. Trump had an interview with Meet the Press. So
All
check
right.
this out.
This because obviously you've had a back and forth with the Supreme Court. In a 9-0 decision, the Supreme Court directed your administration to facilitate the return. You've talked about this in the past of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from a prison in El Salvador, whose deportation your administration called an administrative error. You said in a recent interview you could bring him back, but you won't. Are you defying the Supreme Court, sir?
No, I'm relying on the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, who's very capable, doing a great job, because I'm not involved in the legality or the illegality.
I just want to pause here. You're in charge of the executive branch. That's exactly what you do.
By
Acting within the
definition, that
law.
is your job. Yeah.
That's exactly what you do. He's so clueless. Anyway, here, we'll continue.
have lawyers to do that, and that's why I have a great DOJ. We have a great one. We had a very corrupt one before. Now we have a great one. And they're not viewing the decision the way you said it. They don't view it that way at all. They think it's a totally different decision.
Well, you say you
And I don't know if you saw, and I don't have it queued up, but that Oval Office meeting where Stephen Miller came on, like the White House Nosferatu, and was trying to say out loud that the ruling that the Supreme Court made nine to nothing was somehow completely in favor of what they were doing. And there's been a lot of theories about that, and because of the way Trump reacted to that real time, that's what they've been telling him. Like he's not bright enough to understand what the ruling really meant, and so they told him that it was a victory, and he just bought it.
Have you watched him sign executive orders? They have to read off what's in it. He's like, oh, okay, and then just signs them.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate beta male. He really is.
Yeah, and he shows that here. He's showing who's the strings are being pulled. He's not the one really in charge.
You have the power to bring him back, though. Your attorney general says, quote, that's up to El Salvador. Just to put a fine point on this, do you have the power to bring Abrego Garcia back as the Supreme Court?
Well, I have the
ordered?
power to ask for him to come back if I'm instructed by the Attorney General that it's legal to do so.
Beta male.
But the decision as to whether or not he should come back will be the head of El Salvador. He's a very capable man.
Your Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr.
I
President?
don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the
I don't know if
Don't know.
everyone here deserves due process.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's the problem. The Kool-Aid drinkers in this country, out of their own obsession with pseudo-Christianity and racism, decided this person knew the Constitution. So I'm like, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that the people who performed the January 6th fun time are
Fifth
traitors.
Amendment
They
says
I don't know.
deserve
It might say that, but if you're talking about that, then we'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials. We have thousands of people that are some murderers and some drug dealers and some of the worst people on earth. Some of the worst, most dangerous people on earth. And I was elected to get them the hell out of here, and the courts are holding me from doing it.
You mean by
Oh no, not due process.
oh
That's
no?
the point. run them through the process. That's all we're asking. I'm not saying that maybe some of them don't have the records or anything to support them, but they're like, well, it's just one step. And like we talked about, but that's the most important step.
Yeah,
If
I'll
he can do
grant
it
you
today,
there is probably a significant percentage of them, it's small but significant, that have criminal records and probably do deserve deportation. But we have no way of knowing. We don't
nope.
know how many of them have criminal records at all because he's not willing to go through due process. And the reason he's not is because he knows it'll be revealed that only a very small percentage of them have criminal records and actually deserve to be deported. Now, none of them deserve to be deported to like El Salvador or any shit like that. But
To a country that's not their origin specifically.
right.
But even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as
I
president?
don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me, and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said. What you said is not what I heard the Supreme Court said. They have a different interpretation.
Is anyone in your administration right now in contact with El Salvador about
Okay, that's what I wanted us to see was him say punt to his crack team of lawyers about whether or not he has to follow the Constitution.
It's crack team.
Because
might be on crack, but yeah.
Because,
I
I
definitely
mean-
love this.
I mean, if you need to do that, you shouldn't be president of the United States. I mean, shouldn't be anyway for any number of reasons. But good God, if you don't even understand
Yeah.
that very basic rule that hey, yes, I am supposed to obey the Constitution. I'm supposed to enforce the Constitution. He swore on a freaking Bible. Well, he didn't actually put his hand on the Bible, but
He
yes,
didn't actually put his
he
hand on
didn't actually
anything.
touch it,
Yeah.
which I'm sure for him is an out. But
The only people less informed about how government works in the Constitution than him are his voters.
yeah. I
don't know
didn't
shit.
actually put my hand on the
couldn't
Bible,
possibly
therefore, I don't know whether or not I have to enforce it. Maybe I don't. So,
This is fascism. This is the antithesis of this. And if you agree with what he's doing and support him, congratulations, you're a fascist.
yeah.
When they make fun of Antifa, they're like, I'm not for Antifa. I'm like, so you're anti-fascist. So you're fascist. Okay, you are. I believe you when you tell me.
I mean, these are the same people who want to scream to the high heavens about human trafficking, and yet they're perfectly fine with him trafficking kids and people out of the country. I mean, how many minors has he sent out of the country? I mean, recently there was a story, obviously, about the kid who had cancer, and they didn't even give the parents time to secure other options. They just said, do you want to bring this kid with you out of the country? And they're not even 100% sure that the mom understood that, and
Yeah.
sent them out of the country without their medicine. I mean, they are the ones doing the human
Okay.
trafficking, and
They are
that was
human
one of their main attacks. They don't have any principles. It's just hypocrisy is the point.
And every single fucking news story recently has been what I call the 3 C's or a combination thereof. Conservatives, Christians, and cops. Or a combination. They're the kitty diddlers. They're the one filming child pornography. They're the ones getting in trouble. Okay? You
Over
don't
and
hear
over again. Yeah.
over and over. It is not us. It is not. I will go to the mat for any kids. Okay? All of them, trans, cis, straight, gay. I don't give a shit. They are children and they deserve the opportunity to achieve things that are being held back because of these identities.
Well, it's
because
that
you
whole
don't know
old
how
saying where, like, if you've lived with privilege your whole life, equality feels like oppression. So
Correct.
whenever they don't get exactly what they want, or when somebody else is in danger of getting as much as they are, then they want to turn them into villains. They're scared of them because in their hearts they know that they don't deserve the privilege that they have. They know they haven't earned it, but they still desperately want that advantage because they know that they would fall without it. So they'll make villains out of trans people. Even say that they're child abusers and pedos. Whenever you can, as you just mentioned, I could look on the internet and find 10 stories about church pastors or youth pastors who are been convicted, not just suspected, convicted of what their crimes against children. Find me one of a trans person, just one, because you know how I know there isn't one? because if there was, the right would be holding it up in your face constantly, saying, look at this one, look at this one. That's how I know there aren't any. It's the same thing they're doing to migrants, where they're kicking them out of the country and telling them they're taking your jobs and that they're, hurting people, they're dangerous or whatever, because they want you to look over here and see these people as villains, so that they can, so you feel better about yourself and you won't mind too much if the people who look like you get all the privileges at the top, and you get convinced you that, well, you look like the guys who are at the top, so you must have more in common with them, right?
Jeff Bezos, all these self-made. Jeff Bezos started with a $250,000 loan from his parents. If he failed, I would have been less surprised. But he had started. Elon Musk has stolen every business idea and bought everything that he has. He has not created a fucking thing. And the people that do create are looked down upon. They're called weird, or said that they had an advantage, or their DEI, or all of these things. I'm like, well, okay, maybe if they are, so what? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. They don't want to. They want to float through with your fucking mediocrity and hold everyone else down at the detriment to us as a society. And I'm like, stop worrying about what's in your libraries and start worrying about what's in your Sunday schools. That's your problem.
I want to get to another interview that Trump gave, and it goes back to the villainizing people we were talking about. So he recently did an interview. Obviously, you'll tell in the interview, a very sympathetic interviewer. He wants to glow up Trump and make him seem, like he knows what he's talking about. But this guy also has just the slightest hint of journalistic integrity, to where he has to keep pointing out that Trump is wrong about this specific thing. Now, what he's talking about is Abrego Garcia, who obviously has been accused by the Trump administration of being MS-13 over and over again. Well, recently they tried to make a big thing about how he had some tattoos across his knuckles that they said had symbols on them representing MS-13, but not written out. So somebody in his administration, obviously, and I'll show the picture here, labeled the tattoos on his knuckles, saying that this represent that these represent those numbers and letters. There's no evidence that that's the case. In fact, experts have said otherwise. Members of this gang have these tattoos for the gang. They actually say MS-13, and they're usually gigantic and all over their torsos. I've seen the pictures of them. Some of these guys, they're not hiding it. Believe me.
No, they're heavily tattooed. Yeah.
Right, but Trump, and you'll see here. Now we'll break in here, but if you haven't seen this, it's both depressing, hilarious, and infuriating all at the same time.
ABC interview is raising eyebrows today.
He had MS-13 on his knuckles.
He insists that deported immigrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia has MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles.
Original hand, obviously no MS or 13 on there.
Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was photoshopped. That
was photoshopped, Terry. You can't do that.
They're talking about this image Trump posted on social media. It's a photo created by the Trump administration to bolster their case that Abrego Garcia is a member of the notorious gang. The faded tattoos on his knuckles show a marijuana plant, smiley face, crucifix, and skull. But MS-13 was pretty obviously photoshopped.
Do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop?
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them.
He had MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted.
I asked an expert, author Stephen Dudley.
Are those images that we see on the hands of MS-13 members?
There are some tattoos that signify definite membership. Those would be things like MS-13 on your chest, or just MS. But a lot of the other ones are in this gray area. There's a lot of people with marijuana tattoos, with cross tattoos. So does that indicate gang membership? No, not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, what?
Idiocracy was a documentary at this
right.
point. I'm waiting for you to tell us that electrolytes are what the plants crave. I get the okay. I can see the MS. I don't understand how a crucifix translates to one, and a skull translates to three. Like
I
it's
mean,
QAnon shit.
I
They
can
take
go to the
everything.
gym and I can spot 10 people in the gym who have crosses or skulls somewhere on their bodies. I can probably spot even one or two guys that have pot leaves on them.
Mhm,
This is he's just a moron. He's just
mhm.
stupid. Or,
Yeah,
and I'll ask you this. I'll ask you this because
he's a
I
Gemini. That should tell you everything.
I've
Sorry.
I've heard two different theories on this. I've heard, obviously blatantly he's just an idiot. He's an old grandpa who doesn't understand that Photoshop is a thing, I guess. Or he's just lying because he wants to try to sell this story to his followers and he really believes that if he says it, then his cult will just accept whatever he says as gospel. What do you
Mhm.
think?
I think it's the latter.
Okay.
How many Photoshop of him on Rocky Balboa's body have we seen from his account on social media? He knows what photoshopping is.
You mean he
And granted,
doesn't
he can say,
think he has
well,
to look in the mirror every day and see himself with Rocky's body? You don't think that he has that
oh, yeah.
delusion, those fed filter on? You don't think so?
The best, the best nickname he has for me that is described that is Yam Tits. Have you heard that one? President Yam Tits? And it does. They look like yams. They really do. He
No,
eats
clearly I've
McDonald's.
never heard that before, if my
And
reaction
what's
is any indication.
Stormy Daniels talked about his little mushroom thing. There is nothing exceptional or non-inferior about him.
So,
It is beta male personality. We're like, oh, I love Trump in this. I'm like, you're the definition of beta. You rely on some man to tell you how to live, what to think, how to act. Like, you are so fucking pathetic. That's why we can't take any of them seriously. And their
and
women are even worse.
and
Their women
speaking
are
of,
gender traitors and they offer nothing to society.
yeah,
I said it.
speaking of being pathetic, besides the fact that he just couldn't answer whether or not he is supposed to follow the Constitution and punted to somebody else to take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
Later in that interview, he's asked about his economy, and he guess ahead of time whether or not he takes responsibility for his economy or not. Let's
If
see.
you took responsibility for anything, I would start going to church.
Economy, sir, which obviously the biggest issue for voters. We got new numbers today, better than expected job numbers.
Much better.
At the same time, the economy shrank in the first quarter. You've been arguing all week that this is President Biden's economy. Is this now your economy, sir?
Well, I think certain aspects of it are.
When does it become the Trump economy?
It partially is right now. And I really mean this. I think the good parts are the Trump economy and the bad parts are the Biden economy because he's done a terrible.
And that's all I need on this. That's just everything that's right I did, everything that's wrong he did.
I know.
I mean, how much more beta do you get than that?
I don't know. And he's going to do it. I don't expect any different from him. This is who he's always been. Our focus needs to be on his voters. And either we can educate them and get them to come along, but only if they're interested, or two, we need to shame them into oblivion. Being nice and trying to build bridges, where's that got us? They're doubling down. They're fine. They have admitted this is exactly what they voted for. They're fine with suffering as long as everyone else suffers and suffers more than them.
Yep.
They are not good people. They are
And
not good people.
And the only of these
Stop being so
motherfuckers who
nice to
ever
them.
come back, who ever come across and say anything about him, are the ones who are directly negatively affected. They don't give a damn until it affects them, until it hurts them in some way. And then
And
as
just,
soon as they're better, they go right back
yep.
on that train. They're
We saw
okay
that
with
with that
everybody else
Skylar the
suffering.
farmer guy. We
Hmm.
saw it with Skylar the farmer.
Yeah.
Going from Missouri. Yeah, we saw that. And like Will Westmoreland did a good, like he got his thing where he's like, hey, let's have a discussion about this. And he started coming around. But guess what? He learned to monetize his TikTok because he was getting all the responses, all the comments, all the stitches. And so he monetized his TikTok account. And guess what that meant? Government handout that he was getting. And as soon as he got that covered, he went right back to his bullshit talking points. They do not care about women.
Yes.
They don't care about black folk. They don't care about brown folk. They don't care about LGBTQIA folk. Okay, they don't even care about kids. They don't give a shit about kids. They're willing to sacrifice their education, their health care, their housing. They're the most anti-life, self-absorbed pieces of shit excuses for human beings that roam this earth. And the fact that we're still trying to build bridges and bring, no, it's up to them to do the work.
Yeah,
You're
it'll
full
never
of
happen.
shit. No, and you're too
They'll never
lazy
do
to
it.
do the work. You need other people to organize.
Because
for
in order to do the work you're talking about, Jenna, you actually have to believe in it. You actually have to
they don't.
believe in it. And they don't. They only want to cry and whine victim whenever something bad happens to them. And if they believe it's the left that's doing it, they'll whine and cry and they'll blame them and call them evil. And when it finally happens to them from the right, because they're in the privileged class that the right likes to say that is better, and they and are affected, still affected, but usually affected last. Once it finally trickles down to them and they see the negative effects, that's whenever they'll talk about it. But like you said, as soon as it doesn't, then they're right back to everybody else deserves to suffer. I didn't deserve to suffer, and now that I'm not, everybody else still does too. It's empathy. The difference between us and them, I'll say it 100 times, is empathy. We on the left, if you have empathy, it doesn't matter what else is going on. If you have empathy, you can't help but be a leftist. You can't help it because leftist policies are inherently empathetic. It's why they tried recently to launch their war on empathy, and you got Musk going on Joe Rogan saying that empathy is what's wrong with Western society. Of course he thinks
Then
that.
he immediately asks for people to have empathy for him when his stocks are crashing.
Yes.
No one to buy your
Yes.
Well, how does it affect me? I'm like, be careful. That's dangerously close to asking for empathy, and we can't force it on them. That's our thing. When we try to hit them with what seems like hypocrisy. You're like, well, you remember this? Well, how about this? And all that is us trying to impose empathy on them. We might as well be speaking in Latin. They do not understand it. They do not process it. They are self-involved. They're egotistical, a lot of it unearned. They don't know the difference. And the first thing I hear is, well, why don't we do that? Like, my favorite one is, we don't have White History Month.
Because because as soon as
All
they
these
do it,
people
they'll claim it's cancel culture and that they're being attacked. Even though what they're asking for is ridiculously stupid, it's cancel culture. It's not their stupidity. It's because it's because everybody else is attacking them. It's the victim mentality.
I'll be goddamned if it's not the consequences of my own actions. It's not our lesson to learn, right? All we can do is hold out, protect our own, and then we decide as a people, do we want to stick to these certain principles and be like, well, I don't want to stoop to their level. And I understand the moral argument, but all I will say is, how has that been working out for us? Okay, we are literally failing an open notes test. We are following the exact same playbook that happened in Nazi Germany, and people aren't seeing it because when you read it in the book, it happened real quick in a couple paragraphs. We are living through it right now, and the fact that so many people are remaining quiet is beyond frustrating.
And I forgot there was one other thing in this interview I wanted to show real quick. So I'm going to jump back to that. This is a part where he talks. Well, you'll see where he talks about
Whatever.
He did a
about
terrible
what regular
job on
people have to
everything.
go through. Are going to have
From
to
his
go
auto
through.
pen, which I'm sure he knew nothing about some of the things he was supposedly signing.
But, sir, you acknowledge when you announced your tariffs, for example, the stock market dropped. It's been volatile. It has since gone up.
It is,
Do you
but now
take
it's going up.
responsibility
Look at
for that?
today.
Yeah. Do you
Well,
take
look,
responsibility when it drops?
Ultimately, I take responsibility for everything, but I've only just been here.
Ultimately, I take responsibility for everything. Except 30 seconds ago, he just said the bad shit was not my fault. Except in the last interview we saw, he spent all his time talking about how, the first part of this interview where he's talking about how he can't answer questions because his lawyers are going to be the ones that have to answer the questions. He's got to have his attorney general tell him to do shit. He takes no responsibility at all. He's a puppet.
He is. I mean, I've heard he's a Russian asset. To be honest with you, I feel like we're searching too deep for someone that shallow. I mean, maybe he's a Russian asset. Maybe he's all. I honestly just think he's dumb. I think he's dumb. I think he's selfish. And I think he represents everything negative about capitalism and white supremacy in this country.
Yep.
And the people that vote for him worship that, who will never attain it. But they're cucks. He has created people that think if they worship this and acquiesce and learn to fit into this mold, that they too could achieve this, when in fact they can't. It is stacked against you, and the fact that you are turning against your own people, you are lacking class solidarity. How many gender traitors us ladies have right now, right? 53% of white women voted for this piece of shit, all right? That's my problem.
It's
That is
staggering.
all our problem.
Yeah.
Every single election has fallen on who white women vote for. We need people to find their backbone and stand up for what they believe instead of trying to make peace with people who are only seeking war. Okay? They will never rest until they are completely in charge. We cannot build a bridge out of this.
The tariffs are going to make us rich. We're going to be a very rich country.
So let's talk about the tariffs. And I want to ask you about something you said this week. Got a lot of attention. You were at your cabinet meeting. You said, quote, I'm going to quote what you said, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30.
Yeah.
And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. Are you saying that your tariffs will cause some prices to go up?
No, I think the tariffs are going to be great for us because it's going to make us rich.
But you said some dolls are going to cost more. Isn't that an acknowledgement that some prices will go up?
I don't think a beautiful baby girl that's 11 years old needs to have 30 dolls. I think they can have 3 dolls or 4 dolls because what we were doing with China was just unbelievable.
Okay, that is definitely enough.
Can't wait for 4th of July when we celebrate a fascist military parade like North Korea and Russia and North Vietnam, I guess even.
North Korea, yeah, exactly.
Fireworks all come from China.
Yeah, this asshole has basically covered the White House Oval Office and the White House interior in gold, and wants to spend like $100 million on the military parade you were just talking about, but little Sally can't have the Christmas presents that she wants. Not I mean, it's such a straw man that anybody is buying 30 dolls for their little girl anyway. Not that 11 is a little baby girl either. Come on now. It's all just...
Do you know who buys 30 baby dolls for a young girl? A
billionaires
fucking
like him.
A pedophile.
Well, yes, that too. That too. Which, maybe...
Yeah.
There might be some crossover there. That just couldn't show how more out of touch he is. How much he doesn't understand the lives of the people that he is supposed to be representing. Not at all. He has no clue whatsoever.
He's a nepo baby.
But speaking of the whole, the way the tariffs are going to affect us, I actually want to get into that a little bit in the next segment. So we're going to jump from here to round 2. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this expert, this guy who runs the Port of Los Angeles, and who's a real expert on international trade, did an interview on Bloomberg a little while. And normally I don't care about Bloomberg, but this is really insightful. This guy kind of breaks this down. So I wanted to kind of introduce our audience to this and see what they think about it and see what you think about it.
Really frame it for us. How much volume has just dropped off in the last few weeks?
Yeah, about a third of the import volume, which means give or take about 50,000 20-foot equivalent units gone off the arrivals coming in next week.
From next week is when you expect to see this really hit?
That's correct, and that matches up. The announcements back on...
And this interview was from 5 days ago. So next week is this week. So just so everybody knows the timeline.
April 2nd, then on April 8th, a little bit of a change on everybody, ex-China, Mexico, Canada, and those arrivals are coming at us this weekend.
We'll, of course, dedicate time to your port, but I'm just wondering how you're anticipating this rolls and ripples through the economy from here, how it hits trucking, when this turns up on the shelf. What's the distance, the time, from when you see a drop-off in volume and when we, as consumers, see the shortages?
Right, so CEOs are telling me, hit the pause button, right? I'm not going to import anymore at these kind of prices. Let's wait and see. I don't know if it's going to be 2 hours, 2 days, or 2 weeks till I get some clarity. Then...
And that uncertainty is part of the real problem. It interrupts the flow of goods, which means that we have shortages, which means when there's a shortage, the price goes up, even on something that wasn't already tariffed. Is once they know there's a shortage and it's the last of it, they're going to charge more. So the American consumer pays more even before the tariffs get started.
That's the capitalist way. Like it's why are we paying more? Because it's a perceived shortage. It still costs the same amount to do it. So what happens is they drive the prices up to pad their bottom line and create this pseudo shortage. And then what they do is they raise the prices on us, and then they also claim, well, because the prices are going up, the cost of labor is going up, so then they fire people. So not only are they charging us more, they're putting some of our fellow citizens out of a job. So they're like double, triple dipping. And that's if they don't ask for a handout or a bailout from the government, which is also our tax dollars, of which we pay and they don't pay a thing to.
But this guy does get a little bit into like the effects that are going to happen downstream. So I'm going to let him talk a little bit more, and then we'll talk more about that because you touched on something he's going to touch on too, which is the downstream effects as far as jobs.
And hiring off the table for right now. Capital investment, pause. And the retailers are telling me that realistically, with even the 10%, I'm going to have to pass it on to the consumers.
So how much is this really coming from all over? It's not just about China. This is about really global trade coming to a standstill until there is a much greater degree of certainty and a much lower tariff rate than even the baseline that's been put out there.
Yeah, when I was last with you all, Lisa, I said global trade's going to slow, economies will follow, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Back in November, so many of us were wringing our hands about 4% inflation. We've just added 10 percentage points to imports coming out of Southeast Asia for our port, and these unbelievable numbers out of China.
How much are you going to see a real decline in dock workers if this goes on?
Yeah, this is the question. So the trucker hauling 4 or 5 containers today, next week, she probably hauls 2 or 3. The dock workers are no longer going to see overtime and double shifts. They're going to probably work less than a traditional work week, starting right off the bat. Every 4 containers mean a job. So when we start dialing this back, it's less job opportunity.
So that was the point you were just making, is this isn't just, the cost of the products. This is also the people who are hauling the products. There's just less stuff to haul. There's less people that are needed to unload less product. There's downstream ripples from this that affect every part of the American life. And I think that you can, and I've heard this, people talk about this, tariffs themselves are not like necessarily bad. You can be very targeted with a tariff on a specific industry that companies are outsourcing to another company to get the country to get cheap labor. You tariff that in a reasonable way, pairing that with an economic policy that allows domestic companies to then build factories, build manufacturing capacity here in the United States. But they're not doing that. They don't seem to care about the domestic side as far as increasing manufacturing. All they care, I think, really, when Trump keeps talking about how this is going to make us rich, all he really wants, all his entire end goal is use the tariffs to make money for the government to then fuel the tax cuts that he wants to give to the billionaires that are in his cabinet and that backed him for president. This isn't about increasing manufacturing in the United States or bringing jobs back here. That's a thinly veiled cover because he's not doing anything. That would require taking the tariff money and reinvesting it in American manufacturing and doing it before you impose a 150% tariff on one of our largest importers. You would have to do that ahead of time. He's not doing that. He's saying we're going to get rich. And what he means by we is him and his billionaire friends are going to get rich. And it's all going to be at the cost of vacuuming that money out of the American middle and lower classes' bank accounts. That's all he cares about. We are the rind of an orange that he is trying to squeeze for every last drop of juice he can get out of us. And then once we're completely done, just going to throw the rind away. And besides just the blatant racism, it's one of the reasons why Reagan and the right have wanted to defund education. They've wanted their population less and less critical in their thinking. They wanted them stupider because their policies that only benefit the wealthy, it's easier to get the masses to accept them if they don't understand why they're bad for them. So get rid of critical thinking, get rid of education, and then they'll and infiltrate and villainize the media so that people don't believe what they're telling you either. People stop trusting the media. People already don't have critical thinking skills. People don't have a good education. So all they do is trust the most charismatic person that comes along. And we end up with Donald Trump. In the situation we're in now. Fascism.
Eliminating the fairness doctrine in the 80s for equal coverage time for media, right? With it paved the way to have, and I'm not saying it's just Fox News, MSNBC as well, right? Like we have partisan
all the
news
corporate
things.
outlets do it. And how half the independent media too is millionaire owned.
Eliminating PBS and NPR, right? And they call it state-owned media. I'm like, what the fuck do you think Fox is?
Right.
And all I know is the reason the right, I feel like they've made a deal with the devil in dealing with the conservatives, the religious extreme folk. And they do it because, let's be honest, the people like that will believe anything you tell them without an ounce of fact if it appeals to like a faith or a feeling. Like they don't give a shit if it's truth if they believe like, well, no, I don't require proof. I just have faith. Those are the easiest people to manipulate, and that's why they target them.
All right, so I'm going to move on because people are still standing up. People are still making their voices heard. People are still protesting loudly. So I'm going to hit this with round 3. And we're going to talk about the recent Mayday protests that we had this past weekend and last week. So we had a nationwide, and even because Mayday is more than an American, Mayday isn't technically an American holiday. It's a British holiday. But they celebrate that shit in Europe like crazy and all over the world. And because of what's going on in America, it became very important for us to have our voice heard on a traditionally labor-focused, class-focused holiday like Mayday. So I'm going to show a little bit of the coverage nationwide, and then we're going to show a little bit of what we did here locally in St. Peter's.
Police in Paris responded to Mayday protests that got a little tense earlier today. It's one of many cities where people took to the streets for the May 1st holiday known as International Workers' Day or Labor Day. From Tokyo to Chicago, people celebrated workers and labor organizations for the 136th year in a row, and it's not over yet. CBS News political reporter Nydia Cavazos is at a demonstration in Los Angeles. Nydia, we understand demonstrations in the U.S. are more targeted toward the Trump administration and its policies. What are you seeing?
Thousands and thousands of people that are out here in downtown Los Angeles. They're using the annual May Day March to protest against the Trump administration and the policies that they say are damaging to the working class and damaging to their communities. And what we're seeing on the ground today is many people who are here who are advocating for the release of the Venezuelan immigrants who are currently being detained in El Salvador. We're also seeing them protest and demanding more of a due process when it comes to the immigrants and the deportations that we've been seeing. Now it's community organizers, activists, students, workers here in Los Angeles. And this protest in particular comes after days and days that we've been seeing workers on strike here in Los Angeles. So this is yet another one of these protests. But we are expecting thousands of people here as well as across the country. And it's also notable that the LGBTQ community also has its members here with its pride flags, but they've mentioned that they're specifically here to advocate for the release of Andre Hernandez, who is a Venezuelan immigrant who is currently being detained in El Salvador, and he came to the U.S. seeking asylum and works as a makeup artist. And so this is the scene out here.
And I think that's kind of important what she mentions there about how this is traditionally a labor-focused holiday. But not only is it being celebrated strongly in the United States when it normally isn't celebrated as strongly, but it's become, because of the situation that we're in now, more than just a workers' day. It's become, these people came out, the LGBTQ community came out, the people who are coming out talking about the illegal deportations that are happening. This has become, and these are things that are affecting only the members of those communities that are in the working class. These are people who are looking at, I'm more like even if I'm a straight, let's say I'm a straight white guy, but I'm a blue collar worker or a middle class working guy, I have more in common with my LGBTQ neighbor who's in the same class that I'm in. I have more in common with the people that are being deported because they're working people just like me. None of these people are elites. None of these people are capitalists who are taking advantage of my labor. These are people just like me. And they're all coming together on a day like this.
Mm-hmm. Even China celebrates Labor Day, or I'm sorry, they
Mayday.
celebrate Mayday.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, communist China celebrates Mayday.
Right.
Maybe I went down the rabbit hole going on Red Note during the last TikTok ban for those few hours.
Mm-hmm.
But man, we've been lied to about China. The propaganda has been strong against China.
Locally, we had a big protest here as well. Now, I got a little bit of footage from the protest. I'm going to show a little bit of it here. My camera work here is, by the way, just outstanding. So you will love this. All right, so I'm out here at the protest. It is May 3rd, and you can hear the horns behind me. We have a lot of people here. It's fantastic. You love to see this. It's been a rainy afternoon. Weather's kind of stunk out here. But we've got them lined up all the way near Barnes & Noble, all the way down damn near to the highway. Yeah, so that was the scene out there. And I was able to go and talk to a few people. Yeah, see, that's another picture of the crowd. Got some folks who brought out some... yeah, I found quite a few signs that I really enjoyed. So got a few of those pictures. People were very receptive. People were having a good time out there. It was worse. I know we had some stuff going on the last one. It was a little rainy for a little while. This was worse. It was chilly, windy, rainy. It was not a pleasant time to be out there, but these people still thought it was important enough to come out here and make sure their opinions were heard and that their voices were. And we had so many people. What I love about this is not just the people that are here, but as you could hear in the video, so many people out there honking at the people. And then, I mean, there was a couple of folks who would obviously right wingers, big dudes in their trucks, yelling at the folks out there and trying to tell them to go home. But the vast majority, those guys were few and far between, and the honking was pretty much nonstop, showing their support for these protesters. It was great.
Yeah, it is good to get people out there with like a show of solidarity. It's very good to let people know that are driving past or that are showing up that like they are not alone, because what the conservative MAGA movement has done is compartmentalize people. And they've made it think like you're either this or you're that. And what I have found is there are non-MAGA Republicans who are traditionally more moderate or right of center, right? Who I will say for me isn't a big difference between left of center, but that's a whole other conversation.
Well, you're probably just an economic conservative at that point.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, but we believe in the Constitution. We believe in the initiative petition process in Missouri. We believe that when you put abortion on the ballot and we vote yes, that you should not be coming back trying to put it back on there and telling us no, like they're doing right now, right? So it is good out there to build community and show people they're not alone. And it's good to get together because it's not just that. We also need people to take the next step. This is the beginning step to change, but it's an important one because it gets people on board, right? Now the next thing is like, okay, we need to speak at county council meetings, city council meetings, alderman meetings, school board meetings. We need candidates, we need donors, right? I wish we could change the world with awesome signs, because I will say white people's sign game is pretty strong. It's pretty witty, but that's just the intro, right? And I don't want to scare anyone off, and maybe that's all I can get out of them. I will take it. But we also do need to keep moving it forward.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, if we get a couple hundred people out of one of these events, and even a quarter of them does something more than just come out, and even if all that 75% does is come out every time and show that the movement still has strength, great.
And I'm not saying this isn't important. Everyone needs a place, and everyone serves a purpose. And like we said, if this is where you're comfortable with, I'll meet you there. I will meet you there.
Right.
I think a lot of the issues we have is this is a great landing spot. If this is what you're comfortable with, great. But what I need these people to do is when they see people taking a more assertive approach or even quite possibly aggressive, right? Maybe they don't agree with some of the things they're going. I don't need you to condone it. I need you to understand. Okay. So if you don't like if you don't like the fact that at some point this needs to go to marching, okay?
Right.
Marching leads to blocking. And then when you start getting that people like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, listen, your children's education is being harmed. My people are looking at being put on a registry, okay? We have systemic racist cops out here killing everyone they can when there's not a body cam on tap of our black and brown folk, okay? And we have too much, well, it's not my problem, it's not me, it is your problem, okay? Because all you're doing right now is taking this in prioritizing your comfort over the next generation. What I care about is if my nieces and nephews are safe to go somewhere without the threat of being drugged or shot by anyone, a mass shooter, the police officers, anything of that nature. And that's what I focus on. So while I definitely applaud people that are doing this, that are waking up, like in the long run, it might need to escalate. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, okay, just don't get in our way. That is my problem. There's too many people that want to toe the line and not create any ripples or any waves, and they still think things are going to change. We hope it will. But if anything this history has taught me of this country is that it's not possible. We are in fascism. It's not coming. It is here. So as trite as it seems, when people say, how would you have reacted in 1930s Germany? Now you know.
Well, we need to show them that. We need to show them that we're better than what happened back then. And I think, yeah, you're right. People, whenever they see people who are doing more, whenever they're pushing back as strongly as they can against the fascism, you have to you have to support it. Don't dog on it. Don't capitulate. Yeah. And then secondly, what you have to ask of these folks who are out here right now doing this is push yourself beyond your normal comfort zone with this. It doesn't mean you have to step directly into joining a branch of Antifa or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we're asking. But if you came out with a sign
in your contacts.
Right. But if you came out with a sign and you hear about a march, or you hear about like you mentioned, if you hear about a sit-in, on the steps of the Capitol or something like that, think about that. Can you do it? Because it's important now. It's important now more than it's ever been, probably in my lifetime, and I'm an old guy. This is the greatest threat to American freedom and democracy, and by extension, the anchor that America has been, for better or for worse, to world stability. That's all fallen away right now. It's all being destroyed by the fascist regime that's in power right now. We have to react appropriate to the times. Nobody would ever advocate for violence just to get a bill passed or something. You know what I mean? But whenever your rights are being stolen and your country is in this kind of danger, you have to respond appropriately. You have to respond in kind with the measures that are being taken against you. That doesn't mean that you do the same evil shit that the other guys are doing. It means that you have to react just as strongly with the righteous kind of response and help and push back against them. That's what we ask you guys to do. Is just don't get in the way and get out of your comfort zone and do what you know needs to be done, not just what you're comfortable doing.
And that's going to be different for everybody. I get that. Until we are honest with ourselves, until we are willing to be uncomfortable and reflect so we can grow, we're never going to change. And we're just going to keep kicking the can down the road to our next generations. And it's only going to get worse. So we either confront it now where it's super painful, or they're going to do it where it's irreparable at that point. Yeah, it's impossible at that point, and there's nothing they can do but try to keep their head above water. We're trying to get them into the shallow end. I mean, seriously, look, like, no matter your political belief, look at your kids and be like, hey, guess what? I hope you starve if you aren't working that hard. If you're working at McDonald's, you're working 40 hours a week, then get another job. Like, say that, look at your own children like that, and why some people do that with their own kids. But how I cannot understand the lack of empathy. It does not compute with me.
That's why those protests that we just covered are so important to show people, if nothing else, if that's all you do every time you come out, you show the people who see these protests that they are not alone. Hey guys, if you liked that video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment. Doesn't cost you anything and it really helps the channel out. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Keep fighting.